All right, folks, I think I'm live. I'll just wait for some feedback. Let me know in chat if the AV is clear. Okay, I can see it on my YouTube, so it should be fine, but I'll just still wait for some chat response. By the way, sorry for the delay. I just got stuck with something. That's why the delay. But yeah, please let me know if the AV is clear on chat, and then we can get started. All good? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Rosemary. And there's somebody called Looking Eyes, so I'll have to call you that. So thank you. Thank you so much for confirming. All right, folks, let's get started. I know, of course, your time is really precious, so I don't want to do a lot of small talk and waste your time. Hi, Kanwardeep. We'll get started. We're close to CAT. We're very close to CAT, right? 2 weeks away. So yeah, I mean, I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourself. I don't want to spend too much time with general Gyan. We are here for a purpose, so we'll finish that, and you can get back to doing uh, bigger and better things, whether that's your practice or whatever that is. But I just wanted to say one thing. I mean, see, these last 2 weeks are obviously crucial. So definitely focus on your prep and all of that, but also focus on your health. Okay, both on your physical and mental health. Okay, that's very important. Don't neglect that, because if your health goes for a toss, then there's no point, right? The prep is not going to help you. So just take care of your physical health. Whatever that is for you, different strokes for different folks, but be conscious about that. Sleep. Try to sleep well. Eat good food. Avoid fast food, or avoid uh, junk food maybe for the next 2 weeks. Take care of your health, both physical and mental. Be in good shape and have faith in your preparation. I'm sure it will work out. Yeah, your hard work is not going to go to waste. So if you put in hard work, have faith in that. And yeah, just uh, you know again, sorry, I'm just repeating, take care of yourself. Okay. All right. Perfect. So, folks, let's get started. So we're going to discuss verbal ability, right? From CAT 23 slot 3. So we've done the RC. So this is the last episode of the Blitzkrieg season. I've discussed all the slots. Everything is on YouTube. Uh, in the last 2 weeks, we discussed RCs for slot 3 as well from 23. So now we'll discuss verbal ability today, and we'll close. Okay. So today what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about strategy as well. Maybe in this last leg, you folks are probably struggling with the question type, so that strategy can help you. So just a little sort of small note on strategy, and I'll do that as I'm explaining each question. Okay, so that you can sort of get something concrete out of this. All right. Okay. Perfect. Alvin is saying, Alvin, listen, I understand. I understand that, right? It's obviously not that would affect you, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, come on, don't let it affect you and stuff. It will affect you, but I'm just putting things in perspective. It's a mock at the end of the day, right? Fluctuations, believe me, the amount of plus ones you'll get. Now, you see the responses. People, most of the students are in the same boat. Fluctuations happen with everyone. So don't take one mock to heart. Okay. You've just come out of it, so you'll feel bad. But analyze it, make sure to learn from it, and forget about it. Right? Your actual performance is going to be much better than this. Your actual performance will turn out to be your best mock. That happens to a lot of students. Right? So it's just a mock. Don't take it to heart, but just make sure to learn from it. Right? And if you notice any patterns of mistakes, note that down in your error log, and then revise that before the next mock and exam, and that will help you to improve. Okay, awesome. All right, perfect, people. Let's get started. So 1 second, just a little bit. Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, I'm still here. Just give me 1 second. I'm a little disorganized today. Apologies for that. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. All right. Let's get started. Okay. So there's another question about mocks. I'll handle that later. Okay. You can ask me like general questions as well. I'll take care of that later. Let's just finish the verbal ability questions first, and then we can have a general discussion of that. Okay. All right, perfect. So let's get started. Now, you can see the screen. So we're going to practice questions. We're going to do these questions together. These questions belong to CAT 23 slot 3 verbal ability. We'll start with para summary, right? What I want you to do is I want you to read the question, which is on your screen, right? I'll run a poll. You mark the answer in the poll, okay? And then we'll discuss it. And while we're discussing it, I'll also give you some pointers around strategy and stuff, okay? So let me run the poll and you can mark it in the poll. Do your due diligence. If you're seeing this question for the first time, solve it properly. If you've already attempted it, you can attempt the answer. You can mark the answer that you marked for the first time, right? So that you can understand if there's a mistake and all of that. Go for it, people. The poll is up. Please mark at the poll. Okay, great. People, in the interest of time, right? And I want to give you like a reasonable amount of time, keeping in mind the exam as well. I'll close the poll in 30 seconds. Okay. All right. Karishma, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that, the explanations helped you. So thank you for that. Okay, last 10 seconds. Right. Sure. Vikram, you can, Amrit or Vikram, whatever you go by, feel free to put that question in chat. I'll come back to it. Okay, let me just finish this question and then I'll come back to it. Okay. Folks, feel free to ask all your general questions, whatever that is. I will cover all of them. Some of them I'll cover at the end, so but I'll make sure to cover all of them. Okay, let's discuss this, folks. Now, look at the way you voted, right? It is split, right? So whenever the vote is split, that means that's an indication that the question, you found the question tricky. Okay, so let's first look at the vote. So 34% of you have gone with 1. Okay, 1 second. Sorry. Sorry, my tab is acting up. Okay, 34% of you have gone with 1. Right. 30% have gone with, you've gone with 2. 20% has gone with 3, and 15% has gone with 4. This is how you voted. So 1, 2, 3, 4, basically. Right. So the first thing is, when you're solving a para summary, you should always read the paragraph first. Don't look at the options. You should never look at the options for any question in VRC. You should always start with, go in the order the question has been set. So read the paragraph first. Okay. While you're reading the paragraph, remember to extract the main points. Typically, every paragraph has 1 to 3 main points. So as you're reading, keep extracting the main points in your head, or if that doesn't work for you, mental notes, take written notes. Okay. All right, let's do that. Gradually, life for the island's birds is improving. Okay. Antarctic prions and white-headed petrels, which also nest in burrows, had managed to cling on in some sites while pests were on the island. Okay, their numbers are now increasing. Okay, you can pause here and consolidate, extract the points in your head. See, this is a good thing. It's a positive development, right? It says that life for the island's birds is improving, which is a great thing. And then it gives you details around it. Okay, that certain birds, I'm guessing these are birds, they managed to cling on in some sites while pests were on the island. Their numbers are now increasing. So definitely life is improving, and the author has given you some details around it, and 2 specific birds, prions and white-headed petrels. Let's move on. It's fantastic and so exciting, Shaw says. As birds return to breed, they also poo. Remember, it's improving. So birds are, the life is improving, so birds are coming back. As birds return to breed, they also poo. This adds nutrients to the soil, which in turn helps the plants to grow back stronger. Fantastic. So life is improving, right? Not only for birds, but looks like it's also improving for the plants. So the birds poo, and that is adding nutrients to the soil, which is helping plants to grow back stronger. Tall plants then help burrowing birds hide from predatory skuas. It's this wonderful feedback loop, Shaw says. There is a feedback loop. There is a loop, right? Understand why they're saying that, right? It's a very mutual thing. So birds are returning to breed. They're defecating, they're pooing. That is helping the plants to grow. And once the plants become tall, they help burrowing birds hide from predating skuas. So they're helping each other. That's why it's a feedback loop, right? The birds and plants are helping each other. But net, what's happening on the island? Life is improving, not only for birds, but also for plants. Today, the pretty paddock that Houghton first experienced has been transformed. The tussock is over your head and you're dodging all these penguin tunnels, she says. The orchids and tiny herb that had been protected by fencing have started turning up all over the place. So the third sentence basically, again, talks about how the island is improving, right? It's flourishing. The orchids and tiny herb that were protected by fence earlier, now they are growing, they're turning up all over the place. So again, plants sort of flourishing, the life of plants improving. Okay, so clearly the theme of the paragraph is on how life on this island is improving. Okay, not only for birds, but also for plants. And then there are details around it. Okay, so you have your first point here, which talks about how the Antarctic prions and white-headed petrels, in general, birds, their numbers are increasing. Okay, then the second point is about the feedback loop, or the mutual help that birds and plants are giving to each other. Right, the poo is adding nutrients, which is helping plants grow taller, and that help birds. Great. And third part is just sort of talking about the beauty of the island, how that's flourishing, plants are turning up everywhere. So third sentence is basically Horton's quote, right, on how the island is flourishing. But I think in terms of the 3 points, 1 and 2 seem more important than 3. All right. Okay. So basically, what I've done here is I read the paragraph, I extracted the main points in my head. In this case, there are 3 sentences. I'm taking that as 3 main points. Okay. So consolidate the main points. If you want, you can write it down as well. But it's all about life on the island flourishing, not only for plants, but also for birds. That feedback loop is also an interesting point that might come up, should be a part of the summary. We'll see the options now. Okay. So the first thing that you do is just read the paragraph, extract the main points. I hope this is clear. Let me know if you have any question about the paragraph. Now, the second step is you start looking at the options, break them up, and look for inconsistencies. That's the second step. Always in para summary, options tend to be longer. Whenever you see a longer option, break it up and look for inconsistencies. If you see anything which is inconsistent with the information in the paragraph, eliminate it. So second step is all about breaking up and eliminating. Let's do that. Okay, let's look at this. There is an increasing number of predatory birds and plants on the island. Okay, is this consistent with the paragraph? Tell me. And people who have chosen 1, if you are saying it's consistent, give me evidence. Give me evidence from the paragraph that says there is an increasing number of predatory birds and plants on the island. There's an irritating lag on YouTube, but I want to wait because I want to discuss. Is this consistent? Okay, Looking Eye says yes. Give me evidence. People who are saying yes, please give me evidence. Let me understand what is the evidence for this. Okay, so we have two opinions here. Looking Eye is saying yes. Chirag is saying no. Predators have gone is what Chirag is asking. So tell me. Cover the increasing number of birds and plants. Okay, correct. Cover the option says there is an increasing number of predatory birds and plants on the island. Did the number of predators increase, or does it look like the number of predators went down? Think about it. What is the paragraph saying? That life on island is flourishing, right? Why is it flourishing? The predator, if there were predators, would the life flourish? The predators went down. Also, see, it also talks about it. It says Antarctic prions and petrels, which also nested, had managed to cling on in some sites while pests were on the island. Their numbers are now increasing. This implies that pests have gone or have reduced. That's why the numbers are increasing. Tall plants then help burrowing birds hide from predatory skuas. The predators would have gone down, right? People, for the life to flourish. Otherwise, how will life flourish? Predatory skuas are predatory birds, right? But Rosemary, understand the context. Tall plants then help burrowing birds hide from predatory skuas. The essence of that statement is how the plants help birds hide from predators. Okay, the essence of the sentence is not that the number of predatory skuas have increased. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say it has increased. And also the essence, consider the essence of the paragraph. The predators would have gone down. So there is an inconsistency there, people. Okay, the part A is an inconsistency. And also look at that. There's an increasing number of predatory birds and plants on the island, despite of the presence of pests, which is a positive development. How can increasing number of predators be a positive development? There are lots of inconsistencies here. So break it up and then understand. Just because words match doesn't mean it's the right answer. It has to be mentioned in the same context. So there is an inconsistency here. We're going to eliminate it. Okay, but always break it up. Let's go to step 2. In the absence of pests, okay, this is fine. Life on island is now protected. This is fine. And there has been a revival of variety of birds and plants. Look at this option. Isn't it nice? Do you notice any inconsistency? And by the way, feel free to let me know if you notice an inconsistency. We will discuss it. In the absence of pests, that is implied. Life on island is now protected. That is implied. And there has been a revival of a variety of birds and plants. That's the main idea of this paragraph. So this is consistent. We're going to park it. Okay, because we haven't looked at other options. there is a huge positive transformation of the ecosystem of the island. Yeah, this is consistent when brought under environmental protection. Okay, give me evidence for this. Is there evidence for environmental protection? People who chose 3 specifically, give me evidence from the paragraph which tells you that there was environmental protection. Protected by fencing is not really environmental protection. Okay, when brought an environmental protection is you're saying that there's a huge transformation of the ecosystem of the island when brought under environmental protection. This is not the main reason in the paragraph that's been given for the revival of the island. This is like you're using external knowledge. Environmental protection is not protected by fencing, can't be considered as environmental protection. When brought under environmental protection, this seems like they were brought under a regulation or a law or something like that. Okay, so there is no evidence for that. This is inconsistent. I'll answer the questions in the chat. Okay, let's go to 4. Flowering plants, herbs, and birds are now being protected on this wonderful Antarctic island. Antarctic island. Does it say Antarctic island anywhere? I'm just wondering. I didn't even like properly consider this option. Does it say Antarctic island anywhere? Not really. It says Antarctic prions, but that doesn't mean that it's an Antarctic island. I can't use that as evidence, right? So I'm going to eliminate it. And also this is, I mean, even if you don't eliminate it, it will get eliminated later based on the completion of summary. All right. So see, 1, 3 definitely have inconsistencies. 4 likely has an inconsistency as well. 2 is the only option that doesn't have inconsistency and is the best summary available. Okay, so that's what we do, and I'll answer questions. The first step, again, folks, just remember, read the paragraph, extract the main points. Second step, break up options and eliminate based on inconsistency. And then third step is, out of the remaining options, post elimination, choose the best option. The best option will cover the maximum main points. Okay, now let me answer that question. It's given pests are there, right? Now, Vikram, Kamardeep, let's understand this. Look at this sentence. Gradually, life for the island's birds is improving. Antarctic prions and white-headed petrels, which also nest in burrows, had managed to cling on in some sites while pests were on the island. Were past tense. Their numbers are now increasing. What does this imply? It's an inference that you're drawing. For these birds, pests were likely predators. Okay? When the pests were there, they managed to cling on some sites. So they managed to cling on trees. Maybe the pests were on land. Okay? And they managed to cling on some sites till the pests were there. When the pests disappeared, the numbers are now increasing. So it's an inference that you have to draw. The fact that the numbers are increasing, that means the pests have gone. And that's why the numbers are increasing. All right? Okay, so that's the inference that we're drawing. And that's why this is the answer. All right. Okay. We'll move on. If you have any more questions, you can put it and I'll come back to it at the end. All right. Okay. Let's go to question 2. Sorry. Yeah, go for it. Solve this one. By the way, ignore the title. The title is meaningless. I'll run the poll. निखिल, पैरा समरी में नेगेटिव मार्किंग होती है बिकॉज इट्स अ मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चन, राइट? कोई भी एमसीक्यू होएगा तो उसमें नेगेटिव मार्किंग होगी, तो पैरा समरी हैज नेगेटिव मार्किंग. Okay, people, I'll give you 30 more seconds, okay, and then we'll start discussing. Shubhankar is saying would have been a round two question for me. Shubhankar, I think that's a correct assessment for this question. Okay. Because this question is I mean, it's abstract. Number one, the content is abstract, right? As opposed to the previous one, which was very concrete, right? So yeah, I think if you're leaving it for round two, I think that's a good assessment, right? I speak Hindi very well, by the way. I don't speak it often because I mean we cater to a pan-India audience, right? That's why I always speak in English. But my Hindi is. I'm from Nagpur. I was born and brought up in Nagpur, so I grew up learning Hindi. Okay, people. Last 10 seconds. Okay. So we'll look at the poll. Nikhil, the Tita questions, type in the answer. Questions don't have negative marking. So odd one out, para jumbles typically don't have negative marking. Para summary and para completion typically have negative marking, right? But again, exam instructions definitely read karna because these things can change. All right. Okay. Let's look at it. So here you folks are more. I mean, there is a majority. More than half of you said the answer is one. Okay. Then 34% said the answer is two. So, I mean, quite a few of you voted for this. 4 and 4% went with 3 and 4. Okay, let's look at this. So this is abstract content. Okay, it is not concrete. Last time it was concrete, the last one. Island, birds, very concrete, very tangible. This is about expectations. So it's all like it's an idea. So it's abstract. Abstract content tends to be complex. And that's why Shubhankar was saying that this, he would do this in round two, which I think is good assessment. Okay, let's look at this. So I'll read the paragraph first. The weight of society's expectations is hardly a new phenomenon, but it has become particularly draining over recent decades, perhaps because expectations themselves are so multifarious and contradictory. Okay, pause here and extract some broad sense out of the statement. Don't try to understand each and every word. The weight of society's expectations is hardly a new phenomenon. I think most of us can relate to this. Log kya kahenge, right? What will people say? Immediately, that is the first thing that came to our mind. But it has become particularly draining over recent decades, perhaps because, and why has it become draining over the recent decades? Because expectations themselves are so multifarious and contradictory. There are different kinds of societal expectations, and sometimes these expectations contradict each other. So obviously it's going to become draining, right? Right? Think about it. For somebody who's trying to conform to these expectations, it is a nightmare because they're changing, they're ever changing, they're contradictory. So that's why the author is saying that particularly over the recent decades, the weight has become draining, right? Okay, so that's the first sentence. So keep sort of consolidating the ideas in your head or keep taking notes. The perfectionism of the 1950s was rooted in the norms of mass culture and captured in famous advertising images of the ideal white American family that now seems self-satirizing. Now, this can be a little cryptic. Don't try to understand each and every word. Just extract some broad sense out of it, okay? Especially with abstract content. What is it saying? Perfectionism of the 1950s, so it's talking about the past, was rooted in the norms of mass culture and captured in famous advertising images of the ideal white American family, which now seems self-satirizing. That means self-satirizing means now they seem strange. Now they seem funny. Now they seem deserving of sarcasm. That's what it means. But continue. In that era, perfectionism meant seamlessly conforming to values, behavior, and appearance, chiseled confidence for men, demure graciousness for women. The perfectionist was under pressure to look like everyone else only more so. Interesting. So 1950s had a certain brand of perfectionism. That's what the paragraph is saying. And what was that brand? In that era, perfectionism meant seamlessly conforming to values, behavior, and appearance. So men were supposed to be like uber confident. Women were supposed to be demure and gracious. And perfectionist was under pressure to look like everyone else. So you had to conform. This was all about like conforming, right? Look like everyone else. There is a certain sort of mold, or there is a certain type that was there, and everybody was expected to adhere to that. So men had to be confident, women were expected to. So everybody was put in buckets. Men were put in one bucket, women were put in another bucket, and they were expected to conform to those boxes and buckets, right? So that's the brand of perfectionism in the 1950s. Okay, let's continue. The perfectionists of today, by contrast, feel an obligation to stand out through their idiosyncratic style and wit if they're to gain a foothold in the attention economy. There is a contrast here, right? I don't know if you noticed that, but in the 1950s, there was a certain brand of perfectionism. Now, today, there is a very different brand of perfectionism. Now, people feel an obligation to stand out. In the past, they felt an obligation to conform. They had to look like everybody. They had to blend in. They had to look like everyone else. But now it's the opposite. You have to stand out through their idiosyncratic style. Even if you don't understand idiosyncratic style, focus on the word stand out. Idiosyncrasies are quirks. Okay, add this word to your vocabulary. So if you have an idiosyncrasy, it's a quirk that you have, right? So idiosyncratic style means it's a quirky style that is very specific to you. You know, it's your individualistic style. It's not a style which is very common. So the author is saying now the definition of perfectionism has changed, where people feel an obligation to stand out if they were to gain a foothold in the attention economy. Okay, so what is happening in this paragraph? Understand the structure here. Okay, first statement is of course very general. It introduces perfection and says that, you know, in the last few decades, it's become even more problematic because they're so multifarious and contradictory. And then there is a contrast between 1950s versus now. They both have a different brand of perfectionism. Ignore my writing, it's horrible. Okay, what is the 1950s brand? 1950s brand was all about conforming, okay, blending in. And now it is the opposite. It's like you stand out through your own unique, quirky style. That's the sense of the paragraph. Okay, I hope this is clear. Let me know if you have any questions about the paragraph in chat. Now we'll go to the options. Okay, now let's look at one. This was the first choice. Though long-standing, okay, the pressure to appear perfect and thereby attract attention has evolved over time. Okay, break it up. Is there any kind of evolution spoken about in the paragraph? Evolution is like a change over a period of time, right? That's what evolution is. There is. From 1950s to today, there has been an evolution of the brand of perfectionism. So this is consistent. From one of conformism, which was in the 1950s, to one of non-conformism, which is today. That's what it is, right? Conformism is look like everyone else, conform to societal expectations, be like everyone else. Now it is non-conformism. Have your own style, individualistic style, be quirky, stand out, but still perfectionism. So this option is good. This option is good. We're going to park it. No inconsistencies. No inconsistencies, so we're going to park it. Let's look at second. The pressure to appear perfect has been the cause of tension and conflict. Okay. Pressure to appear perfect has been the cause of tension and conflict because the idea itself has been in a state of flux and hard to define. Now understand this. Okay, there is a cause effect here, right? Now, what we have to see is, does it align with the cause effect in the paragraph? The pressure to appear perfect has been the cause of tension and conflict. This is fine. Why? Because the idea itself has been a state of flux and hard to define. Is this what is causing tension? Does the paragraph say that because the idea, okay, is in a state of flux and undefinable or hard to define, is this causing the tension? See, the tension part is spoken about in the first line, right? It says it is particularly draining over recent decades Perhaps because expectations themselves are so multifarious and contradictory. Expectations are of different kinds and they're contradictory, right? Here it is saying the tension is happening because the idea itself has been a state of flux and hard to define. Where is the evidence for this? Where does it say that perfectionism is hard to define? Or alternatively, that because perfectionism is changing, that is what is causing the tension. The tension is being caused because expectations are multifarious and contradictory. The problem is societal expectations being contradictory and of different kinds. Option 2 blames the idea of perfection. The paragraph doesn't do that. And also my question is, people who pick 2, where does the paragraph say that the idea is hard to define? Is there any evidence for that? Okay, folks who have picked 2, feel free to discuss and answer this question. But see, this is how you'll improve. Break it up in logical chunks and look for inconsistencies. I'm not able to find the evidence for this. And also the whole cause effect is warped here. The author is not blaming the idea of perfectionism. The author is blaming societal expectations. Okay, so there are inconsistencies here. All right. Okay. The desire to attract attention is so deep rooted in individual consciousness that people are willing to go to any lengths to achieve it. So let's break it. The desire to attract attention is so deep rooted in individual consciousness that people are willing to go any lengths to achieve it. Where is evidence for A and B? There is no evidence for A, there is no evidence for B. Especially B, there is no evidence. Okay? All right. The image of perfectionism is reflected in and perpetuated by the media. Where is media mentioned or implied in the passage? Now, this is how they trap you with external knowledge. Okay? You, in your head, generally we say, oh, Instagram does it or media does it. So this sort of tries to trap you with your external knowledge. The paragraph is not talking about media. Okay, so you have to be very careful and look for inconsistencies. There is no, this is also inconsistent. The answer that works is 1. The rest of them have inconsistencies. 2 is tricky, but 2 is not the answer. The cause effect is warped, right? And also there's hard to define, has no evidence. All right. Okay. So this question should have been attempted in round 2. It is tricky. All right. Okay. Perfect. Let's see. Somebody was asking, what about advertising images of? Oh, great. Okay, hold on. The image of, very good, Vikram. The image of perfectionism is reflected in and perpetuated by media. Famous advertising images of. Okay. Image of perfection is reflected and perpetuated by the media. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. There is advertising images. You're right. Fair enough, Vikram. I take that. But it's also very specific to 1950s. That part is not mentioned in the option. This part is seeming like, it sort of applies to everything, right? So yeah, fair enough. I would say this is not an inconsistency, right? But even if you leave it and park it, if you compare 1 and 4, which is a better summary of main points, definitely 1. 4 is very sort of narrow and focuses on only 1 point. Okay, but fair enough. That point is taken. Okay, great. So what is the ideal time to solve this question? Say VA questions typically should be solved in on an average of 2 minutes, right? Some questions you can solve it under 2 minutes. So this question, because it's tricky, it can take anywhere from 2 to 2.5 minutes. That's why you should do this in round 2, not in round 1. It's a time-consuming question, right? But on average, you should solve a VA question in 2 minutes. Of course, there are some which will click and you'll do it under 2 minutes. Some might go up to 2.5, but the average comes to 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question now. Yeah, have a look at this Parajumble, solve it, and then you can send the answer in chat. I can't really run a poll for this. Send your answer in chat and then we'll discuss it. Okay, so I have a question regarding PS should answer based on points referred in the option. What is inferred from this? So I have a question regarding PS should answer based on the points referred in the option. What is inferred from the summary? It is like any other question in VRC, Vikram. You have to draw inferences, right? So it's just like how you attempt RCs, right? You draw inferences. So you will have to look at the information that is stated, and you'll also have to draw inferences. Okay, that's how you solve it. I'm not sure if I'm not getting a question, just rephrase it and then let me know. Okay, Hari is saying, by the way, send me the answers. In the meantime, I'll just answer questions. I prefer attempting PS or PC. Oh, should I attempt PS or PC or PJ at first? Hari, that really depends on your sort of comfort, right? Which question type works for you? Attack that first, right? What I do is I always tell people to do it in round one and round two, right? So no matter how you start, you should do a round one where you should only solve manageable questions very quickly, and then come to round two where you solve the time-consuming questions. So which sequence you want to follow, that depends on your comfort level. Okay. Many people, what they do is when they go from RC to VA, they go from RC to para summary because it's not very similar. It's similar, right? I mean, you're reading RCs, you're extracting main ideas, then they go to para summary, which is also main idea. So they go to RC to PS, right? Then they'll probably solve PJ odd one out and para completion, but this order can change. Okay, send me your answers, people, and don't get influenced by the answers in chat. Just send your answer and then we'll discuss it. Okay, 30 more seconds, people, and let's discuss. Vikram, it's both. It's both. See, this so step one is reading the paragraph, extracting the main points. Step two is breaking up options and eliminating based on inconsistencies. Step three is choosing the best summary. Now, the best summary, the best option, right, is the option that covers the maximum main points. So choose the option that covers the maximum main points that you've extracted from the paragraph. Okay, so if there is if step three, you have two options. If option, let's say you've eliminated 1 and 3, and 2 and 4 is 2 covers only 2 main points, whereas 4 covers 3 main points, then 4 is your answer because it's covering the maximum points from the paragraph. Now, those points can be stated or inferred. Okay, all right. Let me know if the question is if you still have a follow-up question. Okay, let's look at it now, people. Just pay attention. So you can see the answers in chat. Now I'm going to solve it in front of you, and then I'll talk a little bit about the strategy, right? See, start reading the first sentence, read the full sentence, extract some broad sense out of it. Sometimes you will not be able to understand the full sentence because it's coming out of nowhere, right? But extract some broad sense. And then when you're extracting the broad sense, ask yourself, can this be a starter statement? Okay, let's look at it. So it says, Veena Sahajwala, a material scientist at the University of New South Wales, believes there is a new way of solving this problem. Can this be a starter statement? Just for the interest of time, it can't, because it says this problem. If a statement is raising a question in your head, what problem? That means it needs a precedent. This can't be a starter statement. You need a statement. You need statements before this that talk about the problem. So if a statement is raising a question in your head, what problem? It can't be a starter statement. Okay, let's extract some broad sense. So what is this saying? Talks about Veena Sahajwala, the material scientist, believes there's a new way of solving this problem. The preceding sentences should talk about what that problem is. So let's continue. Her vision is for automated drones and robots to pick out components, put them into a small furnace, and smelt them at specific temperatures to extract the metals one by one before they're sent off to manufacturers for reuse. So it starts with her. It can't be a starter statement. Her is probably referring to Veena Sahajwala. Probably. It has a. This statement is very detailed. Okay, it's explaining the process in detail, right? Generally, such statements with so much of detail come later in the paragraph. But anyway, we won't waste a lot of time here. It is explaining the process of something. Okay, we don't know what that is, but it's explaining the process. This is her vision is. Okay, let's continue. It can't be a starter statement. E-waste contains huge quantities of valuable metals, ceramics, and plastics that could be salvaged and recycled, although currently not enough of it is. Can this be a starter statement? Yes. It's a general statement. There are no pronouns. Okay. And what does the statement say? That e-waste could be salvaged and recycled, but currently not enough of it is done. Okay, so there is scope of improvement in terms of recycling. That's what it's saying, recycling of e-waste. Let's continue. She plans to build micro factories that can tease apart the tangle of materials in mobile phones, computers, and other e-waste. Again, that she's definitely referring to Veena Sahajwala. Now we know that. This can't be a starter statement. There is only one candidate for a starter statement. So now we know that the starter statement is 3. It can't be else. Now, if you're able to identify the starter statement like this, 50% of your job is done. Okay, so it's good. It doesn't happen every time. Sometimes you'll have 2-3 candidates of starter statements. So here 3 is very clearly the starter statement. The next question that you should ask yourself is, what is the most obvious link? Most obvious, not any, most obvious link in this 4 statements. Tell me, most obvious one. Most obvious. One? No, one with what? One with what? You have to give me a pair. 3-1. Correct. Correct. Absolutely. 3-1 is the most obvious pair or link, consecutive link that we're talking about. See, it says this problem here. This problem, what problem? This is the problem. That not enough of e-waste is being recycled. So 3-1 is the most obvious one. I'm glad you're picking that and nothing else. Pick the most obvious one. Now there are 3-1 you've picked. 3 is the starter. You can immediately come to step 3 of Parajumble strategy, which is trying out different combinations. What are the possible answers here? We have decided that 3-1 is a pair. 3 is the starter statement. What are the possible answers? Quickly, folks. What are the possible not forget it. What are the possible combinations? 3124 or 3442. That's what you should be doing at this point. When you figure this out, write it down in your notepad. 3142 or 3124. Now read both of them very quickly. Do this very carefully. That step 3 is very important. You should try out different combinations. Okay, so in this case, there are 2 combinations. Read both of them very quickly. Now approach it with an open mind. Okay, forget your answer. Read both of them very quickly and tell me which one makes more sense in terms of flow. In a Parajumble, flow trumps everything. The flow of content should be smooth. So you have to tell me which one is a smoother flow. And that one will always be the correct answer. 3142 or 3124? And remember, one's flow in Parajumbles is general to specific. Generally, authors write like this. They'll start with a general statement, they'll go to specifics. They'll introduce something, they'll go into details generally. It can be the other way around also, but usually the flow is like this. What is better? Read both of them and tell me. 2 feels like a conclusion. I'll tell you why it feels like a conclusion to you, because of this word vision. Okay? It's possible because of that. The answer is 3142, people. And I'll tell you why. See, 3-1 you know. Okay, so let's read 1. Veena Sahajwala, a material scientist at the University of New South Wales, believes there's a new way of solving this problem. She plans to build micro factories that can tease apart the tangle of materials in mobile phones, computers, and other e-waste. Isn't 2 giving you the details of the process mentioned in 4? isn't two giving you the details. She plans to build microfactories that can tease apart the tangle of materials in mobile phones, computers, and e-waste. That means the factories, there'll be some mechanism to separate these materials. Then the two gives you details. Automated drones and robots to pick out components, put the whole shebang, the whole details are given in two. First, you will start with a broad statement that she plans to build microfactories, which is what will happen. And what will happen in the microfactories? Separation of materials. How the separation of materials will happen comes in two. So that's why two will come after four. And that's why the answer is 3142. Now, the learning for you guys here is, see, in the end, please do that. In the end, always try out multiple combinations. So you've let's say you figure out, okay, let's say your answer was 3124. You could have done, you've already figured out, you're very sure about 3-1. What stops you from doing a versus? Do this versus very quickly. Take that extra 20 seconds to do that versus. Quickly read and remember, flow will always trump. The flow in 342 is much better than 3124. So do that versus in the end, okay? And then your accuracy will improve. Okay? All right, perfect. Let's go to the next one. Have a look at it. Also, grammar rule. Second person comes before third person. Second person comes before third person. Okay, I'm not the best at grammar, but we'll go back and analyze it. Second person comes before third person. Right. So you're talking about first person, Veena, then she and her. Is that what you're talking about? Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think that's a good way to look at it. The first person is Veena, second person is she, third person is her. Perfect. Great. Okay, Vikram, we'll handle the question at the end. Okay, I'll come back to para summary. You'll have to stay back, but we'll do it at the end. People do, if you're finding the session useful, please do like the stream. It helps us just gain more visibility on YouTube. So yeah, if you're enjoying it, definitely hit the like button. Okay, so Sigboy is saying round two. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think, yeah, if you're leaving this for round two, I think that's fine because the sentences are long. There aren't many clues, right? So if you're leaving it for round two, it is a time-consuming question. It's a tricky one, slightly tricky one. So leaving it for round two would be a good choice. Okay, folks, take another 30 seconds, and then let's discuss it. Okay. All right. Let's discuss it. Now pay attention. You can see the diversity in your answers, right? This proves that this is a tricky question. And that's why when one of you was saying round two, I agreed. I said this is probably a round two question, right? Manageable questions only should be done in round one. Okay. Should definitely try it. But if you're stuck, then don't spend a lot of time, right? Just punch in something and move on. Okay, let's focus now. Focus on the process. Okay. We'll read each sentence. So it says, centuries later, formal learning is still mostly based on reading, even with the widespread use of other possible education affecting technologies such as film, radio, and television. Can this be a starter statement? Not really. I'll tell you why. Because it says centuries later, formal learning. So this implies that something has been spoken about before. And it says is still mostly based on reading. This is an indicator that there are preceding sentences before this. Okay, so unlikely to be a starter statement. But let's understand what this statement is saying. That formal learning is still based on reading in spite of other technologies available. Okay, so we have film, radio, and television, like visual mediums, or even like audible, like radio, but still mostly our formal learning is based on reading. Okay, all right. Unlikely to be a starter statement. Second, one of the immediate and recognizable impacts of the printing press was on how people learned. In the scribal culture, it primarily involved listening, so memorization was paramount. Okay, understand the statement. One of the immediate and recognizable impacts of the printing press, of course, use general knowledge. Printing press will print stuff and people will read. Okay, was on how people learned. So printing press had an impact on how people learned. In the scribal culture, it primarily involved listening, so memorization was paramount. Now, the scribal culture, we don't know what scribal culture is. I don't know, right? But I can understand that it's different. It's different from printing press, right? Because in the scribal culture, it primarily involved listening, so memorization was paramount. Printing press can't be about listening. So these two are contrasting. Okay, so the printing press came about and it changed how people learned. Okay, can this be a starter statement? Can be, right? It's a generic statement. There are no pronouns. It can be a starter statement. Again, with starter statements, be careful. Only rule them out when you're 100% sure that it's not a starter statement. This is a possible candidate. Okay, we'll see whether it's the best one. Okay. The transformation of learners from listeners to readers was a complex social and cultural phenomenon, and it was not until the industrial era that the concept of universal literacy took root. Okay, what is this sentence talking about? Transformation of learners from listeners to readers. Okay, it's connected to statement two, right? Statement two is also talking about that. Statement two is also saying printing press and then listening. So it's connected. The transformation of learners from listeners to readers was a complex social and cultural phenomena. It was not until the industrial era that the concept of universal literacy took root. Fair enough. Can this be a starter statement? Yes, it is possible. Let's go to the fourth one. The printing press shifted the learning process as listening and memorization gradually gave way to reading and learning no longer required the presence of a mentor. It could be done privately. Okay. Now, when you're evaluating this statement, this is giving you details about the printing press. Do you think 4 can be a starter statement in this paragraph? And now we're at 4, right? So you can do a comparison with the other statements. Do you think 4 can be a starter statement? If no, why? Printing press already told before. Right. Say there are two statements that are talking about printing press, right? So when you're at 4, you have to look at 2 and say, okay, given that we have 2, can 4 be a starter statement? It can't, because 4 is giving you details. 2 is the general statement and 4 is giving you details. Chirag, you're right. Okay. Now read it. One of the immediate and recognizable impacts of the printing press was on how people learned, very broadly. Okay. Now, 4 is giving you the details about it. What was the impact? The printed press shifted the learning process as listening and memorization gradually gave way to reading, and learning no longer required the presence of a mentor. It could be done privately. 4 is clearly giving you the details about 2. Given that if it is giving you details about 2, this can't be a starter statement. You can safely rule it out. Okay. Now, the thing is, we are stuck with 2 starter statements. So don't try to resolve this now. Okay. It is going to be difficult. Both seem to be good candidates. Now tell me and answer this question very carefully. Give me the most obvious consecutive link, or most obvious link or pair. Most obvious one. Don't give me like many answers. 2, 4. 2, 4. Very good. Very good. I'm glad you're picking 2, 4. 2, 4 is the most obvious one. Okay. So as we discussed, I'm not going to repeat it. So 2, 4 is definitely a pair. Okay. Now you've done this. All right. Now tell me, what is the next most obvious link? Okay. Great. So you folks are giving me 3-1-4-1. 3-1-4-1 is what I'm getting. I'm getting different answers here. Okay. So let's look at it from another angle. This question gets a little tricky now. Okay. Out of the 4 statements, do you think there is a statement which looks like a closing statement? And why? Is there a statement that looks like a closing statement to you? Good, good. One. Look at one. And by the way, folks, this is like a thing that gets that we don't use too much in parajumbles, but it's an effective technique. Like the way starter statements have characteristics, closing statements have characteristics too. Okay. Closing statements, sometimes what they do is they open up a new angle which is not discussed in the previous statements. Understand, this paragraph has been taken out from the middle of an article. There will be information after this also. So whatever that new angle the closing statement is opening up will be elaborated later. So sometimes closing statements open up a new angle. Now, so that's an indicator of a closing statement. See, it says centuries later, formal learning is still mostly based on reading, even with the widespread use of other possible education affecting technologies. This is the new angle that's bringing up, which could have been elaborated. Maybe in the article it has been elaborated later. And also this talks about centuries later, whereas the remaining 3 statements talk about the past, past to present, past to present, right? So that's a very strong candidate for a starter statement. So now you have 2, 4, and you have 1. Okay. And this is a closing statement. What are the 2 possible combinations? Or rather, what are the possible combinations? 2, 4, and the closing statement is 1. What are the possible combinations? Remember, 1 has to come at the end. Okay. So 2-4-3-1 or 3-2-4-1. That's it. Okay. Because 1 has to come at the end. So it can be 2-4-3-1 or it can be 3-2-4-1. Now read both of them with an open mind and tell me which one is a better combination. With an open mind, forget your answer because only one answer can be correct. Read both of them, scan them quickly and tell me where the flow is better. Three in the beginning makes more sense, Kanwardeep. That's one point. What I would like you to evaluate is look at the entire flow of these two combinations and tell me which one makes more sense holistically. People, okay, so this is where it gets tricky, right? And that's why you should do that versus. This will boost your accuracy. The better flow is 2-4-3-1. Okay, and I'll tell you why. See, look at how three says the transformation of learners from listeners to readers was a complex social and cultural phenomena. It is talking about a specific transformation. Most likely, the preceding sentences should talk about that transformation. And then you can talk about the complexity and how it was not until the industrial era that the concept of universal literacy took root. Right? So this needs a preceding sentences should talk about that transformation. 2 and 4 talk about that transformation. So you put 2, you put 4, then you say transformation of learners from listeners to readers was a complex social and cultural phenomena, and then you move on to centuries later. That's why 2-4-3-1 is better. Okay. Now, does 3-2-4-1 make sense? Yes, it does. But in parajumbles, you have to remember we have to go for the better flow. There are many instances in parajumbles when both will make sense, but you have to objectively analyze and ask yourself which one is a better flow. I'll tell you what threw you off, and you folks mentioned that. One of the immediate and recognizable impacts of the printing press. This made it seem like to you that this can't be a starter statement. But ask yourself why. One of the immediate and recognizable impacts of the printing press, a paragraph can start with this, right? These questions are taken from paragraphs in the middle of the article. So one of the immediate and recognizable impacts of the printing press, and maybe the next paragraph talks about other impacts. You never know. So just because it says one of the immediate and recognizable impacts doesn't exclude it from being the starter statement. Although I understand where you're coming from, but that can't be the sole factor that we'll say, oh, this can't be a starter statement. Okay, the flow is much better in 2-4-3-1 because of this whole transformation being explained in 2-4. Okay, so tricky one. The answer is 2-4-3-1. Right, this is a round 2 question. It should have been done in round 2. But you should definitely never spend a lot of time on parajumbles. If you're getting confused, lots of combinations, after like 1.5 minutes, punch in something, move on. If you're close to the answer, go to 2 minutes. Sometimes you'll go to 2 minutes, 10 seconds, 20 seconds to do your due diligence, but only when you're close to the answer. This is a tough one, no doubt about it. Okay. All right, fantastic people. Let's go to, if there are questions, put them there. But I have to watch the clock as well. So we will now go to odd one out. Solve this. I'll run the poll, mark it in the poll. Oh, this one only has, oh yeah, I know this annoying thing. Okay, so YouTube only allows me to put 4 options. YouTube is just being stingy. If the answer is 5, you type it in chat. Okay, let me answer a RC question in the meantime. People keep voting. Should I read questions first in a tough abstract passage or not? Because reading questions at least gives me option to answer some specific questions. Okay. Sick. Sorry, I have to call you sick boy. No. I don't recommend that at all. Okay, I'm very against that strategy of reading questions first because I'll tell you why. That's a strategy that used to work in school with those straightforward RC passages. In CAT, it's not going to work because those passages are very, very complex, right? Now you read questions first. What will happen is when you're reading the passage, your mind is just trying to find answers rather than focusing on the content of the passage. So I don't recommend that at all. So the answer to that question from my end is going to be no. But now here comes the point. If it has been working for you, that's a different story. So if you've already tried it in multiple mocks and it has worked, go ahead. But now is not the time to experiment and come up with a new experimental strategy like this. So if you haven't tried it in the past, don't do it now. Just go with the order. But if it has been working for you, that's a different question. Okay. Okay, people, I'll give you 30 more seconds. Yeah, if the answer is 5, as you saw one of the if the answer is 5, then just type that on chat. Sir, I think the looking up at question strategy works with the passage and lots of references and names. Somadeep, if it's, as I said, I'm very, very against it. I'm dead against it. Okay. I tell my students to never do that. All right. So lots of references and names. How many passages have you seen with such structure? And still, I would say don't do it. But if it has been working for you, that's a different story. Okay. All right, people, I'm going to end the poll in 10 seconds. Vote. Odd one out questions, by the way, are questions that you should always attempt in the exam, provided they don't turn it into MCQ. I don't think they'll do that. But again, read the instructions. But a theta odd one out, you should always attempt. There's a 1 in 5 chance of getting it correct without any risk. So even in the last 5 seconds, if you have 5 seconds, just punch in something and move on and hope to God that you get it right. I think I've if I'm not wrong, I've gotten one question right like this in the past in CAT. It's possible. So 3 marks is a big thing. So just take it. Okay. Let's end the poll now. Okay. All right. Now I'll answer the questions. First, let me focus on this one. 45% of you are saying 2. Okay. All right. So almost 50%. 33% is going with 4. All right. 12% is going with 3. 8% is going with 1. And then there were some takers for 5 as well. So I'm just going to put 5 here. Okay. All right. Now focus on this. I'll solve this question for you. I'll talk a little bit about the strategy. See, odd one out is similar to Parajumble, but it's not the same. You don't have to follow all the steps that we did in Parajumbles. In odd one out, the most important thing is theming. Theme. Sometimes the question is manageable that you just figure out the theme and you'll be able to figure out the odd one out. Sometimes. Okay, but theming is very important. So as you're going through the sentences, we have to figure out a theme. Now with theming, remember, don't come up with a broad theme. If you come up with a broad theme, 5 sentences will always fit that theme. See, I'll tell you how these questions are designed. Typically, they go to an article, they'll go to a paragraph, they'll give you pick 4 sentences from that paragraph. The 5th sentence will usually be part of the same article. Okay, sometimes it's a part of the next paragraph. Sometimes it's a part of the same article. So when you look at it broadly, you'll be like, okay, all these 5 sentences are fitting a theme. So you have to come up with a specific theme because you have to focus on a paragraph. All right. So the theme has to be specific, not broad. Broad will not help you. Okay. So try to understand the theme. And then, of course, we try to understand links as well. So I'll take you through the question and then I'll talk more about the strategy. But remember, theming is most important. Let's read this. Although hard skills have traditionally ruled the roost, some companies are moving away from choosing prospective hires based on technical abilities alone. Understand the statement. There are hard skills and there are soft skills, right? This is sort of general knowledge. Technical abilities come under hard skills. Okay. Although hard skills have traditionally ruled, although hard skills have traditionally been, companies have sought hard skills. Companies are moving away. They're changing their strategy from choosing hires based on technical abilities alone. Technical abilities come under hard skills. So some change is happening. They're moving away from hard skills. Extract some broad sense in your head, and then continue to statement two. Companies are shaking off the old definition of an ideal candidate and ditching the idea of looking for the singularly perfect candidate altogether. What does two mean? Companies are shaking off the old definition of an ideal candidate and ditching the idea of looking for the singularly perfect candidate altogether. That means they're moving away from perfectionism. Okay, so basically the sentence implies that in the past there was this ideal definition of old definition of an ideal candidate, that only hire a person when the person is perfect. But now they're ditching that idea of a singularly perfect candidate altogether. Okay, so they're moving away from perfectionism. Statement one is talking about moving away from hard skills. Statement two is talking about moving away from perfectionism. Keep that in mind. Let's go to three. Now, some job descriptions are frequently asking for candidates to demonstrate soft skills such as leadership or teamwork. What is three connected to? Remember, we have only looked at one, two, and three. What is statement three connected to? One or two? Quickly. Statement three is connected to one or two? One. Very clearly one. Okay, let's continue to four. That's not to say that practical know-how is no longer required. Some jobs still call for highly specific expertise. Practical know-how will be connected. It's practical know-how. This will be connected to hard skills. This is also connected to one and two. Statement four is also connected to one and two. The move towards prioritizing soft skills is a natural response to 3 years of the pandemic, says a senior recruiter at Central FSB. This is also soft skills. Now, what is the theme? The theme that's emerging is this whole movement from hard skills to soft skills, how soft skills is gaining more importance, and how hard skills are losing importance, and how soft skills are gaining importance. That seems to be the theme. If that is the theme, which is a statement that doesn't fit in the theme? Just answer my question. Forget your answer. If the theme is moving away from hard skills to soft skills, which is a statement that doesn't fit the theme? Two. Two is talking about moving away from perfectionism. Two is not talking about moving away from soft skills or hard skills. It's just generally talking about perfectionism. So the theme here is telling us that the answer is two. This question actually can be solved based on theme. But if you don't take a risk here, what you can do is you can do theme plus one or two links. Here, theme plus one link will give you the idea. Okay. What is the most obvious link here? Can you connect two to any statement? Let me ask you this way. Can you connect two to any statement here? Very decisively tell me that, oh, this is the connection with two. Like any consecutive link, any pair that you can make with two. Think about it. Can you make a pair with two? No, not really. You can't be decisive and say that I'm connecting two with, but otherwise, the other statements you can make a pair. Okay, you can make a pair. So here, this question is a classic example of how when you read it properly and you figure out a specific theme, okay, you'll be able to figure out what the answer is. See, if you took hiring as a theme, then everything will fit. But moving away from hard skills to soft skills, that makes sense. 2.4. Companies are shaking off the old definition of an ideal candidate and ditching the idea of looking for the singularly perfect candidate altogether. That's not to say that practical know-how is no longer required. Some jobs still call for highly specific expertise. Hari, it's not connected, right? This is talking about moving away from perfectionism. This is talking about practical know-how. It's not a good link. We can't be confident here. I don't think it's a link. 2.4 is not a pair. Okay. 1.2. Although hard skills have traditionally ruled the roost, some companies are moving away from choosing perspectives, hiring prospective hires based on technical abilities alone. No, this is moving away from perfectionism. This is moving away from hard skills. These can't be connected. There's no pairing with two. Okay. So theming plus you do that or solve it alone on theming. The answer is 2. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Again, if the answer is 5, put it in chat. Okay, in the meantime, I'll answer some questions. Hold on. How do I minimize this poll? Can't. Oh, it will go on. Okay. What does roost mean? Ruling the roost. Ruling the roost means it was the most dominant aspect. Okay, like hard skills were ruling the roost. That means hard skills was the dominant aspect. Recruiters were looking for hard skills the most. So that's what ruling the roost means. Okay. Sir, any tips for fill in the blanks? That I'll come to. We're going to do para completion, so I will answer that. Would you say finding the order is okay to find the odd one out? Finding the order, that means, Vikram, you're saying finding, like solving it like a Parajumble? I don't recommend that. Okay, because if you start solving an odd one out like a Parajumble, it's going to take a lot of time. So we should reserve that only for the tough odd ones out. Odd ones out should be solved using theme plus 1 or 2 links, or the 2-pair strategy that I'll talk about. Okay. How should we usually start VRC? RC, then VA, and then again back to RC. Okay. Rajan, there are 2 ways to do this. Either you start with RC or go to VA, or start with VA, go to RC. I don't recommend mixing it up, but if it has been working for you, for some students it works. So do that, whatever has been working for you. My general rule is, thumb rule is, if you're reasonably good with RCs, start with RC, go to VA. If RCs is not your strong point and you're capitalizing on VA, then start with VA, go to RC. How long is the session? It will go till 10 o'clock. Okay, people vote in the poll. Ideal number of total attempts, RC and VA together. See, there is no ideal number, Akash, because it will depend on the complexity of the exam, right? So I'm very against that whole thing of, oh, go in with a specific number of attempts and all of that. Okay. Please don't do that. Just the objective should be to maximize attempts with high accuracy. All right. Cutoffs vary, score to percentile mapping varies, right? So there are no ideal number of attempts. Just your objective should be maximize the number of attempts with high accuracy. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. The YouTube IDs can be funny. Okay, let's look at, there's also somebody called Ultimate Onion. It's hilarious. Sometimes your IDs, I mean, I've also had funny YouTube IDs. So what am I saying? Okay, people, I'll give you 30 more seconds. Okay. If it's a 5, then put it there in the end. What does UWU? You mean? I keep seeing that a lot. What does that mean? It means something, right? Some slang. What does that mean? Okay, somebody will tell me. Real name is Sabyasachi. Okay, great. Okay, hopefully I'll remember that. Okay. It's an anime reference. Okay. It's like a cute expression. Right. Okay. Anime. I haven't seen anime. Okay, people, I'm ending the poll in 10 seconds. Cute. It means cute. Okay. Fair enough. I've learned something new today. I'm a very wannabe Gen Z person. My students know this. Sometimes to the extent of being cringy, but I wear it on my sleeve. I wear it very proudly. I tell people that, who doesn't want to be younger? And I think your generation, your generation is some of the things. I mean, I think, yeah, your creativity and all of that. I love the humor and everything. Somebody's asking me to pronounce it was. I'm not taking that bait. Okay, I know it is something. It's not pronounced. So I'm just going to say UWU. Anyway, people, I'm ending the poll. We're digressing. Right. Okay. I'll learn the pronunciation afterwards. Okay. Oh, you guys are pretty decisive. I'm very surprised. I thought this one will stump you, but the previous one stumped you more. Okay. This one, you folks, I mean, again, we'll see if Demure, Demure, I did. Yes, yes. 75% said two. Let's see if that's the correct answer. So this is your first choice. 11% with three and four. Okay. And 0% 0% for one. Okay. Let's look at this. Okay, so let's solve this. Sentences are long, but don't let long sentences throw you off. Sometimes they're very manageable. All right. Boa Senior, who lived through the 2004 tsunami, the Japanese occupation and diseases brought by British settlers, okay, so really survived, was the last native of the island chain who was fluent in Bo. Okay, so we're talking about some character called Boa Senior, who went through a lot of hardships and was the last native of the island chain who was fluent in Bo. Now here, it implies that it's a language, right? Because we're talking about fluent. So, okay, all right, I've understood the statement. Let's go to two. The indigenous population has been steadily collapsing since the island chain was colonized by British settlers in 1858 and used for most of the following 100 years as a colonial penal colony. Okay. All right. So this is talking about, the first statement is talking about Boa Senior. This is talking about indigenous population steadily collapsing, but they both talk about island chain. Okay. So there can be a connection. We'll see. Taking its name from a now extinct tribe, Bo is one of the 10 great Andamanese languages, which are thought to date back to pre-Neolithic human settlement of Southeast Asia. Okay, so this statement is clarifying that Bo is a language and it's talking about the origin of the language. This also said fluent in Bo, so they're probably corrected. We'll see. The last speaker of an ancient tribal language has died in the Andaman Islands. Last speaker has died. Boa Senior was the last native, could be a connection, breaking a 65,000 year link to one of the world's oldest cultures. Okay. Though the language has been closely studied by researchers of linguistic history, Boa Senior spent the last few years of her life unable to converse with anyone in her mother tongue. Okay, so the statement seems to be very connected. Okay, now the theme, see, definitely out in this paragraph, Boa Senior keeps coming up again and again, right? All right. Boa Senior keeps coming up again and again. One is we can try to identify the theme. So let's try and do that. The common aspects that I'm noticing is Boa Senior. I'm also noticing something called a language called Boa, right? And it also talks about how Boa Senior died. Okay. So Boa Senior died. And with that, the language, I mean, this was the last speaker of the language, isn't it? So the theme, although I'm not able to come up with a concrete theme, it has some aspects. Boa Senior, Boa language, Boa Senior died, last speaker of the language. Okay. Now, out of all the statements, right? One talks about Boa Senior, two talks about Bo, three talks about last speaker, which seems to be very connected to one, and five talks about Boa Senior, whereas two is quite generic. It says indigenous population has been steadily collapsing since the island chain. Very, very generic statement. Could be connected, but very generic statement. As opposed to 1, 3, 4, and 5 that are talking about Boa Senior and Bo. So that's one clue. Now, moving away from the theme, let's try to solve this question in another way. See, one way of solving odd one out is theming plus one or two links. Second is if you can come up with pairs. Do you see any, do you see a very obvious link here or very obvious links here? Like, give me the most obvious one. 1, 5, okay. 1, 5, Boa Senior who lived through the, makes sense. Anything else? 4, 1, yeah, 4, 1 also seems very probable. Last speaker and then giving you details about Boa Senior. And 3 is also connected. Okay. So see, when you try to form links, when you look at the most obvious ones, the first the statements that are coming to your mind is 1, 3, 4, and 5. You're able to form 1, 5. You're able to say 4, 1, and you're also able to form links with 3. So look at the most obvious ones. They're taking you to 1, 3, 4, 5. And also one obvious point that I'm sure you already know. If you're able to form a pair, that can't be the odd one out. So let's say that 1, 5, you're saying that I'm 100% sure is a consecutive link, is a pair. That means it can't be the odd one out, right? Because if they have to be the odd one out, both have to be removed. That's not possible. So therefore, even when you try to form consecutive links, 1, 3, 4, 5 are immediately coming to mind. Theme is also leading you to the fact that 2 is the odd one out, and that's why 2 is indeed the odd one out. Okay, well done. Well done. This was a tricky one, so you guys got it pretty quickly, and most of you got it right. If you didn't, just learn from it. But just remember this: theme plus 1 or 2 links or pairs. These are 2 ways to solve an odd one out. Don't try to solve the odd one out like a Parajumble, because you'll end up wasting a lot of time. Okay, that is only done for very difficult odd ones out. Okay, perfect. Let's go to the para completion now. Let's do this, and I'll answer some questions as well. Okay, you can vote in the poll. Take your time. Let me answer some questions when the poll collapses. I generally leave out RCs with a lot of information, like the geographical ones. Is that a good idea? See, if you're not comfortable with them, right, then geography is not your genre, right? Genre is one way of selecting the passage, right? Typically, what I tell people is keep 3 things in mind when you're selecting the passage. One, you look at the genre and choose a passage that you are comfortable with, genres that you're comfortable with. Second, general complexity of the language. Third is concrete over abstract. Okay. Most of us are comfortable with concrete content and not comfortable with abstract content. But these 3 factors can be taken into consideration: genre, overall complexity, and concrete over abstract. Okay. So, but if geography is not your cup of tea, then fine. Yeah. The theme was the Bo language speaker or Bo language in general. Second talked about the population, not the language. Correct, Kanwardeep. Correct. Absolutely. Why does it feel like a sitter now, but I marked it wrong? I wrote more. That happens. Pressure gets it. It's a very common thing that comes up. Okay. See, folks, when you're giving the mock, anyone, even when I do, I also make mistakes. When you're giving the mock or the exam, there's a lot of pressure, right? So that pressure will make you do funny things. Okay. That's why CAT is a lot about like temperament and, like, can you calm down and sort of like take a deep breath and attack those questions and stuff. So it's important, that the temperament is important. So that's why it happens. That's why we say give a lot of mocks so that you get used to the whole idea. So don't beat yourself up, right? It's a very common thing. I'm starting to think that 4 might be the odd one out. Okay, but it wasn't. Was it? No. Okay. Are you voting? All right. Vote. So how long should a person take to answer an RC per question, and for how long would say to move on from the question? Okay, Vikram, so see, depends on how many RCs you're attempting. If you're somebody who's attempting, typically people fall in 2 brackets. One, they'll attempt 2 RCs plus VA, or they'll do 3 RCs plus VA. I'm assuming that everyone is doing VA, right? I mean, like my students know this. I just absolutely I'm against the strategy of leaving VA completely, but that's a different story. Excuse me. So how long should you answer an RC question? Typically, see a question, right? If you're spending more than 2.5 minutes, then you're confused, right? And you'll probably get it wrong. And then even if you get it right, there is an opportunity cost. Okay. So on an average, I think you should be solving questions in 1.5 to 2 minutes. Okay. Especially if you're somebody who's doing 3 passages. If you're doing 2 passages, 3 or 4, if you're doing 2 passages, then you can take longer. But 1.5 to 2 minutes, I would say, is a window that you should keep in mind. If you're close to the answer, fine. You're going above 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, 2.5 in some cases it's okay, but 1.5 to 2 minutes on an average. Okay. Because I'm able to read the RC quick, but the solving takes time. If you're able to do the whole process in 10 minutes on an average, then and you're doing 3 RCs plus VA, that's good enough. That's good enough. Okay. So that's fine. Overall, on an average, if you're doing 3 RCs, you'll have to do it in 10 minutes, passage plus questions. Right? Now, if you're saying that I'm able to read the RC quickly, that's great, but don't artificially inflate the speed. Go with your natural speed. That is also something that you can evaluate. But 10 minutes, if you're able to do it, 3 RCs, that's good enough. Okay. Anyway, I'll answer the remaining questions. I'm ending the poll now. Okay, 58% of you went with 3. Okay, so 3 was your first choice. All right. Then followed by 4, followed by 2, followed by 1. Okay, let's look at this. I'll tell you how to solve this. See, the first thing is you read the sentence, given sentence, and then try to make some guess. First of all, read the sentence, understand it. Then try to make some guesses. I'll explain that. Okay, so let's read the sentence. For theoretical purposes, arguments may be considered as freestanding entities, okay, abstracted from their context of use in actual human activities. It's a cryptic statement. But it says, for theoretical purposes, arguments may be considered as freestanding entities. That means independent entities. Freestanding is that. That's what we can extract. Right. 1 second. Sorry. Right. For theoretical purposes, arguments may be considered as freestanding entities. That means independent entities, abstracted from the context of use in actual human activities. This is a little cryptic. So don't try to understand everything. Broad sense. Now what we try to do is we try to make some guesses about preceding and succeeding statements. So you've understood the sentence. Try to make some broad guesses. What could come before this? What could come after this? Sometimes you'll be able to make those guesses, sometimes not. This is a cryptic statement, but it says arguments may be considered as freestanding entities, independent. Okay. What could come before this? Maybe some generic information about arguments. Possible. After this, I don't know. I'm not able to make a guess here. Okay. So let's just say that guesses are not possible. But if you have some logical guesses, again, you've read the paragraph, but any guesses that you could have made before, mention that in chat. But it's a little difficult here. Let's continue now. Now, the next step is we'll start reading the paragraph and we'll eliminate options where we're 100% sure that there is no gap in flow. 100% sure. Okay, so be careful. If you're not 100% sure, don't eliminate it. All right, so there is one in the beginning itself. Let's see if it can fit there. An argument can be defined as a complex symbolic structure where some parts known as the premises offer support to another part, the conclusion. Alternatively, an argument can be viewed as a complex speech act consisting of one or more acts of premising, which assert propositions in favor of the conclusion, an act of concluding, and a stated or implicit marker. Hence, therefore, that indicates that the conclusion follows from the premises. This sounds like what we did in CR. Okay, critical reasoning, right? Okay, do you think it can fit in one? I'll tell you no. Why? Because this is a definition of an argument. This is a definition of an argument. Only after you define it, you can go into details and say freestanding entities and all of that. But the definition should come first. So one here, you can be 100% sure that the sentence won't fit in one. It won't make sense. I hope everybody agrees. If you have a question, let me know. But now the sentence is defining an argument for you. And the given sentence says they may be considered as freestanding entities and something to do with actual human activities. Okay, let's continue. The relation of support between premises and conclusion can be cashed out in different ways. The premises may guarantee the truth of the conclusion or make its truth more probable. The premises may imply the conclusion. The premises may make the conclusion more acceptable or assertable. Tell me, is there a gap in 2? Or can you be 100% sure that there is no gap in 2? Let me ask you that question. Can you be 100% sure that there is no gap in 2? Quickly, folks. There's no gap, right? Because see, the previous preceding statements spoke about premises and conclusion. Then it's saying the relation of support between premises and conclusion. It flows very seamlessly, right? So there is no gap. There is no gap in two. Okay, so here we can safely say that there is no gap in two and move on. All right, okay, let's continue. Now it says premises may imply the conclusion, premises may make the conclusion more acceptable or assertable. But depending on one's explanatory goals, there is also much to be gained from considering arguments as they in fact occur in human communicative practices. Now, be careful here. Remember, if our given sentence said, abstracted from their context of use in actual human activities. Here it is bringing up human communicative practices. Now, this is an indicator that you are in the vicinity of the correct answer. You are in the vicinity of the correct answer. So now don't eliminate. Now don't eliminate. You've eliminated 1 and 2. Okay. You're left with 3 and 4. Start with 3, evaluate 4, and choose the best answer. Now, after 3, we have but. What is but? But is a contrasting transition word. Whenever there's a but, however, yet, it always indicates a contrast. Okay. Now tell me, if we put this sentence, if we put the given sentence in 3, will the but make sense? Plug it in 3 and tell me if the but makes sense. And explain that a little bit as to how that makes sense. I can't understand. That's fine. That's fine, Alfred. No problem. I'll explain it. Anybody else? See, the sentence is saying, for theoretical purposes, arguments may be considered as freestanding or independent entities. That talks about something of human activities. But depending on one's explanatory goals, there's also much to be gained from considering arguments as they in fact occur in human communicative practices. This sentence is telling you that arguments may be considered as independent entities. Okay. Abstracted from their context of use in actual human activities. If they're independent, they are disconnected from actual human activities, right? Think about it. We didn't focus on abstracted from their context, but I'm just saying if they're independent entities, that means they can stand on their own. They're not integrated with human activities. That's what the sentence is saying. So here it is saying it is independent. Now this sentence says, but depending on one's explanatory goals, there's also much to be gained from considering arguments as they in fact occur in human communicative practices. This is talking about how they are linked to human communicative practices. This sentence says independent, disconnected from actual human activities. This says linked to human activities. This is a contrast, right? So the but makes sense. Are you with me? Ayush, very nice, very nice. That's also a very good point to take into consideration. Sentences for theoretical purposes, whereas this is talking about practical real life. That's good. Although the word practically is not mentioned. Good job. Okay, so that's also linked. See, what it's saying is, I'll explain it once more, okay? The sentence is saying arguments may be considered as independent entities, abstracted from their context of use in actual human activities. Abstracted means disconnected. In this case, it means disconnected. They're independent entities disconnected from actual human activities. That's what the sentence is saying. Now, this sentence says, but depending on one's explanatory goals, we can consider arguments as they in fact occur in human communicative practices. So this is linking arguments to human communicative practices. This is saying it is independent. So the but makes sense. They're independent, but they're linked. So it makes sense. Also, as Ayush said, theoretical and practical. The practical part is implied there. Okay, it's tricky. It's tricky language, but the answer is 3. It will not make sense in 4. For that but to make sense, contrast, if you don't put the sentence in 3, that but will not make sense. Okay, therefore the answer is 3. Tricky one. This should have been done in round 2. Okay, language is complex, it's abstract, it's difficult to identify. Leave it for round 2. All right. Okay, let's do this one. Very good, very good. That's great, Sabyasachi. Okay, Saran is saying, when starting the exam, I read first pair of all 4 RCs and then decide which I like and easy and then go with it. Is this a good strategy? Yeah, that's fine, Saran. That's fine. You're taking a, you're basically scanning, right? You're taking a minute to scan. Sorry, not minute. You're scanning and deciding. That's fine. But one thing that I'll tell you, if you're doing the scanning thing, right, don't spend a lot of time scanning. So if you're somebody who's planning to attempt 3 RCs plus verbal ability, your scan should be 1 minute. If you're somebody who does 2 RCs plus verbal ability, you can scan for 1.5 to 2 minutes because you have more time, right? So scanning is fine, but don't take too much time. And also remember, even after scanning is not a foolproof strategy because you've read the first paragraph. Now, when you go on, the passage can become complicated later. So at that time, you should drop it. When you're halfway through the passage, you should ask yourself, when you're actually reading it, and halfway through the passage, ask yourself, do I have the main idea of the author so far? If the answer is no, drop the passage, move to the next one. So you have to be flexible with that as well. Okay, so 2 things. Don't take too much time to scan. And second, be open to dropping the passage and moving on. And that dropping decision can be taken at the halfway. Okay. Sorry, I didn't give you a poll. Para completions in slot 3 were tricky. Okay, I think the remaining questions, I don't know what you folks feel, but I feel like the odd ones out in Parajumbles, not all of them, but there were some manageable ones there. Para summary also, 1 was manageable, but the para completion was tough. Typically, what happens in verbal ability is 3 questions out of the 8 are manageable, typically 4. Okay, so let's take it this way: 3 are manageable, 4 or 5 will be medium to difficult, and then they'll throw in some difficult ones, definitely. So getting 4 out of 8 in verbal ability is not a big task, provided you know the strategies and you've practiced them. But that's why that round 1, round 2 strategy really works. Spot the easy ones and do them. Okay, Vikram, I'll explain that round 1, round 2. Okay, actually, I can explain it now. Folks, in the meantime, vote. Now, round 1 and round 2, Vikram, I mean for VA, not for RC. So if, let's say you finish your RC, go to VA. There are 8 questions, right? So for VA, let's say you're giving 10 minutes to VA. Okay. So what I'm saying is, in 10 minutes, you do 2 rounds of VA. So start with question 1. If it's manageable, do it right then and there. If it's very difficult, leave it. If it's manageable but time consuming, R2. Okay. Then 4, manageable, do it. 5, very difficult, leave it. 6, time consuming, R2. 7, manageable, do it. 8, leave it. Then in round 2, come back and do this. So this strategy ensures that you don't leave a manageable question on the table. You should never be in a situation where you're at the 22nd question, the clock turns to, like, the section changes to DLR. Then you come out of the exam and you realize 23rd and 24th were very manageable. So to avoid that, you do this. But if you're doing round 1 and round 2, please practice them in mocks before doing this in the actual exam. Never try like a drastically new strategy in the exam. That is a bad way to go about it. So please do what has worked for you, or try this in mocks and then do it. Okay. Saran, I just explained it. So you can go back through the recording and see it. Okay, people, I'm ending the poll in 30 seconds. Is round one, round two clear? Vikram, let me know. Is RC, VA, RC good strategy? RC, VA, RC. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. But if it has been working for you, then it's fine. Okay. See, don't make structural drastic changes right now. So if it has been working for you, that's fine. I typically recommend RC to VA or VA to RC, but I know many students for whom this works. So if it's been working for you, go for it. Won't it be a waste of time since you take only 2 minutes or less to? Not really. You have to take those decisions quickly. Okay. Whether you're attempting a question, leaving a question, you're not really wasting time. Okay. But see, round one and round two doesn't work for everyone. Let me tell you that. So try this in mocks. If it doesn't work, stick to your original strategy. Okay. But if you do it properly, it won't be a waste of time. I'm ending the poll now, people. Okay. 41% of you went with 3. All right. Sorry, 40% went with 3, followed by 1, followed by 2, and followed by 4. Okay, let's look at this. All right, so this is also tricky. Let's look at the sentence. Beyond undermining the monopoly of the state on the use of force, armed conflict also creates an environment that can enable organized crime to prosper. So the sentence is talking about armed conflict. And it does two things. One, it undermines the monopoly of the state on the use of force. And it also creates an environment that can enable organized crime to prosper. Now, when you're looking at the sentence, first understand it and then try to make some guesses of preceding and succeeding. See, it says beyond undermining the monopoly of the state. This tells you that the preceding sentences should probably talk about how armed conflict undermines the monopoly of the state. Is this point clear? That's how you make guesses. The preceding sentences should perhaps talk about, perhaps, it's a guess, logical guess, how armed conflict undermines the monopoly of the state. That's why now the sentence is saying beyond undermining, it also does something else. So that's the guess about the preceding statement. Succeeding statement, it says also creates an environment that can enable organized crime to prosper. Perhaps the succeeding statements will give us details about this. That's how you make guesses. Let me know, folks, if this is making sense. Okay, so make some broad logical guesses. It gives you a sense of direction and then continue. Okay, now we'll look for options. If there are no gaps, 100% sure that there are no gaps, we'll eliminate it. Okay, linkages between illicit arms, organized crime, and armed conflict can reinforce one another while also escalating and prolonging violence and eroding governance. Okay, let's understand the statement. Linkages between 3 things: illicit arms, organized crime, and armed conflict can reinforce one another while also escalating and prolonging violence and eroding governance. So they are linked. These 3 things are linked. And when they come together, they reinforce each other while also escalating and prolonging violence and eroding governance. Do you think the statement can fit in one? That was the second choice. That's what I'm asking. Wouldn't the statement need some kind of precedent that talks about undermining the monopoly of the state? Are you with me, folks? Okay. Now, what I was asking you is, this statement would need some kind of precedent, right? If I put it in one, beyond undermining the monopoly of the state, creates an environment that can enable organized crime to prosper. Linkages between illicit arms doesn't make sense. So even if you plug it in one, the flow is not making sense. One can't be the answer. You can plug it in and check. Okay. All right. Now it says eroding governance. Financial gains from crime can lengthen or intensify armed conflicts by creating revenue streams for non-state armed groups. Understand the sentence. Financial gains from crime can lengthen or intensify armed conflicts by creating revenue streams for non-state armed groups. The first statement spoke about linkages: illicit arms, organized crime, armed conflict. Okay. Now, this is saying financial gains from crime, which is organized crime, can lengthen or intensify armed conflicts. It's giving you details about the previous statement. Previous statement simply said linkages. Now it is elaborating. Okay. And it also says by creating revenue streams for non-state armed groups. If you create revenue streams for non-state armed groups, then what happens for the state? It becomes a problem for the state, right? If non-state armed groups get more revenue, that means they get stronger. And non-state armed groups getting stronger will be a problem for the state. So therefore, if you put this in 3, check it out. Revenue streams for non-state armed groups. That means non-state armed groups get stronger. Then it says beyond undermining the monopoly of the state, armed conflict also creates an environment. So that undermining the monopoly of the state part is clarified here. The monopoly of the state is getting undermined because non-state armed groups are getting stronger. So that statement in 3 makes sense. And then it says, in this context, when hostilities cease and parties to a conflict move towards a peaceful resolution, the widespread availability of surplus arms and ammunition can contribute to a situation of criminalized peace. This is happening because organized crime gets enabled. So it enables organized crime to prosper, and therefore this thing happens. It's a consequence of that. So the statement goes well in 3, but it's a tricky one. Both of this actually should have been solved in round 2. Okay, it's a tricky one. Anyway, okay, great. So folks, we're done with the session, but again, I'm happy to stay back and answer some questions. Please do hit like before you leave. Right, verbal ability is something, as I said, you can get like 3 or 4 correct. 3 you can definitely get because 3 will be manageable. So don't leave VA completely. You can even sort of the remaining 2 weeks, if you practice every day, you will get better at it. So definitely don't neglect it. Okay. All right. How much time should you spend on RC and VA? It depends. This is what I propose. If you are attempting 3 RCs, then you'll take about 30 minutes for RC, and then VA will take about 10 minutes. Okay. This is for people who are attempting, let's say, 3 RCs and they're reasonably good at RCs. If you're not good at RCs and VA is your strong point, then you can do 15 minutes. Okay. So 15 minutes or so people who are capitalizing on VA. And typically what they do is, and then it becomes 15 and 25. All right. This is for people who are capitalizing on VA, or in other words, they're not great at RCs. These are people who are reasonably good at RCs, right? They spend 30 minutes and go to 10 minutes. So this is the split usually. Plus minus 1, 2 can happen. But this is what I would recommend. Again, my advice to you is please don't change anything drastically right now. Okay. And if you're planning to change it, at least try it in 3, 4 mocks to see if it's working for you. Okay. But making drastic structural changes at this point is not a good idea. All right. Okay. One second. So can you explain again why it's not 2 and 3? The thing is, see that it can fit in 2, but I'll tell you why. What the problem for 2 is. It says eroding governance, right? So you can Sabyasachi, you can say that eroding governance is connected to undermining the monopoly of the state on the use of force, right? But it's very broad. Eroding governance can be anything. We are talking about beyond undermining the monopoly of the state on the use of force specifically. That becomes clear here. The monopoly of state gets undermined on the use of force because non-state armed forces are getting stronger because of additional revenue. So that gets clarified only here. Into the problem is eroding governance is very generic. It won't support this part. Okay. Yeah, but I know it's tricky. I think when I solved it first time, I was also very tempted to go for 2. So 2 is a little trickier. Okay, but that's too generic. Okay. Whenever I read anything, I get panic thinking that I'm not going to understand what should I do. Okay. See, Anuj, again, I'll tell you something. This is this pressure. This is this pressure, right? Because you've been reading all your life, right? You've also prepared for CAT. You must have read, right? So this is just your mind telling you false things. All right. Whenever that happens, practically what I can tell you is if it's happening, that you're starting to read and you're not understanding anything, just take a deep breath. Okay, pause for 20-30 seconds, take a deep breath, take a couple of deep breaths, and then start again. Okay, this is just pressure, I'm telling you, pure pressure. So in that case, it's important to pause, take a brief pause, take a couple of deep breaths, tell yourself you got this, and then start reading. And if the passage is complicated, if you're finding it too complicated, drop it, move to another passage. Right? So there's just pressure talking. I think that pause should help you there. All right. Okay. You say we shouldn't walk in with a set number of questions to attempt. Paper can be easier or harder, so it fluctuates. So ideally, we should be going in with time rigidity. Is that we're supposed to do fixed time for a section? If it's easy, you end up attempting more if it's difficult. No, fixed time for why are we fixing time for a section? Time is fixed. No, what if it's no? All I'm saying, Chirag, is you start the paper, right? And your focus should be on maximizing attempts with high accuracy. Okay, you can't go with a rigid number in your head. Like for instance, I'm going to attempt 18 questions in VRC. That doesn't make sense. What if the paper turns out to be complex? Then you're forcing yourself to solve questions, and you'll end up losing marks and negatives, and it'll wreck your entire score. Or you say something like, okay, I'll wait for you, but I'll still continue. Also something like, okay, I'm going to attempt, I'm not great at VRC, I'm going to attempt 9 questions. But what if the paper turns out to be easy? Right? You go with, see, in VRC, you go with your structure. Is it 2 RCs plus VA or 3 RCs plus VA? And solve that. Follow that. And in that realm, you attempt the questions with maximum accuracy. Accuracy, as you know, should be aligned with your risk level. So that's what I'm saying. Don't be rigid with your number. Of course, you'll have an idea that I usually attempt 15, 16, 17 questions. But it can't be rigid. That's what I'm saying. I'm not fixating on number to attempt, but the section. So game plan is a structure. Yes, that's what it is. Structure and VRC is your game plan. Go with that and do your best with that. And risk, should be aligned with your competency. That you already know. Okay, and you have a general idea of the number of questions. Keep that in mind, but please don't be fixated on that. The time for a section, meaning what? You're talking about VA versus RC? I think you're talking about that. That you already know. See, that you can stick to it. Plus minus 2 minutes can happen. That you can decide on the complexity of things. For instance, let's say if you're someone who spends 30 minutes on RC and 10 minutes on VA. RC turns out to be very complicated. Okay, you've looked at it and stuff, and in 25 minutes you realize it's not going in. Then you can make that dynamically, you can make that change depending on the complexity of the exam. But I don't see plus minus 2 minutes is what usually happens. Right? So that's what I would suggest. That you can be a little dynamic. Okay, Chirag, maybe we can take this offline. Okay, DM me. We'll take care of it. Okay. Let's see now. Do you think it's a smart move if a critical reasoning question is there to just skip it? Vikram, if you are not comfortable with CR questions at all, then yes. But what I always tell people, students, is that don't base your attempt decision solely on the question type. Sometimes what happens is CR questions typically are tricky, but sometimes the options are very manageable, right? So if you have some competency in CR questions, what I would suggest is read the options and then decide. Okay. But if you have like, okay, I have no idea about CR questions, I always get them wrong, then you can skip them. Okay. But usually I tell people to not base that decision on the question type alone. Please look at the question options. Sometimes the options turn out to be manageable. All right. Is 5 attempts in VA a good attempt? Most times I'm not making it to R2 for VA. 5 attempts in VA. See, there are 4 TETA questions. Okay. So let's say you at least 3, 2 odd one out, 1 Parajumble. And then out of the 4, you're attempting 2, 1 para summary, 1 para completion. That's fine. That's fine. I think it's okay. But I would really suggest that you do round 1 and round 2. At least you should be able to look at all the questions. What are the 3 questions that you didn't look at? Right? I mean, okay, let's take it this way. Sorry, I'm blabbering a bit. You should, if you're looking at all the questions and then attempting 5, then it's fine. Then it's fine. Okay, but make sure you're looking at all the questions. You shouldn't land up in a situation where the timer goes off and you haven't looked at 7 and 8. Okay. 9, 10 questions about that market option, that you'll have to check the stats on the internet. Okay. My strength was VRC is to score between 35 to 40. Fully after Diwali, I'm not able to comprehend the passage and score dropped drastically. Or a LOL. See, if this is happening, number one, your foundation seems to be strong because you were getting those scores, right? What I would strongly suggest to you is please amp up your leisure reading. Every day for 30 to 45 minutes, read. Sit, read. Longer articles, complex stuff. Read. Okay. And then before giving your mocks, read an article and then give the mocks. Okay. So do that. You'll have obviously continue doing your mocks, which is great. Sectionals, mocks, whatever that is. Always start with 45 minutes of leisure reading. That will give you the momentum and it will bring you back. Sometimes what happens is when we are disconnected from reading, this thing happens, right? So get back to leisure reading in the next 15 days. Make sure to read every day, okay? And read longer and complex stuff till Thursday. Okay, Friday and Saturday, you can read lighter stuff, but still continue reading. Try that. What are your thoughts on hedging? Usually I'm stuck between 2 options. Hedging, see, what I tell people is this whole 50-50 business doesn't work. Okay. Your risk level should be based on your competency. If your competency in VRC is high, okay, you can mark a question even if you're 80% sure. If your competency in VRC is low, you should mark a question only when you're 90% sure. Okay. And 50-50, no, I don't recommend that at all. That will never work. When you're stuck between 2 close options, you should ask yourself, what is the difference between these 2 options? That's a question you should ask yourself to break the tie. If you're able to articulate the difference very clearly between those 2 close options, then you go ahead and attempt the question. Otherwise, you leave it. But mark an option only when you're at least, if your competency is high, 80%. It can go down to 75% also, provided your competency is high. Otherwise, 50-50, no, I don't recommend that. Okay. All right, people. Great. I believe I've answered all the questions, but this is the last session of Blitzkrieg, right? I don't think I'll see you in a live after this, but all the very best. Okay. You'll probably see a video on our channel wishing you all the best. But all the very best. Take care of your health, as I said in the beginning. Very, very important, right? Keep doing your prep, keep doing your mocks and all of that. I would recommend finish your last mock latest by Thursday. Okay, Friday, Saturday, just relax and unwind. Do some light reading, light leisure reading on Friday, Saturday before the exam. Do some light revision of your formulas and stuff, but don't do heavy duty prep on Friday and Saturday. Okay, so finish your mock, I would say by Wednesday, but if you want to stretch it, finish it by Thursday. All right, and take care of your physical and mental health. Very, very important. And have faith in your preparation. Okay, and as I always say, if it doesn't resonate with you, ignore the message. I always say this: this is not the end of the world. Okay, it's a very important exam. I obviously it's a very important exam, but it's an exam at the end of the day. Okay, if you do well, fantastic. God forbid if you don't, there are other options, many other options. And you should watch Rajesh's video, by the way. Okay, there are many other options. You can take CAT again. There is ZAT, there is SNAP, there is MyCat, there are other options. So don't let your brain tell you that this is do or die, make or break. This is not. Okay, it's an important exam. Definitely give it that respect, but don't put CAT up on a pedestal and start worshipping it. It doesn't deserve your worship. Okay, all right. So, and you got this. You got this. I'll also send that video. You should watch that on our channel. It's resonated quite well with students. I'm sure it will resonate well with you as well. Where is that? Where is that? Yeah, watch this video. It's from Rajesh. It's a great video. Definitely watch it. It'll give you that boost of motivation, hopefully. Just editorial of newspaper is enough. Editorial of newspaper, yeah, that's good. Editorial is good language. I would suggest read other articles as well from good sites, right? Smithsonian, Aeon, Philosophy Now. You know, there's so many of them. Read other aspects, but editorial is good. Thank you for all your effort. Oh, thank you. I'm glad it helps. Thank you. How much leisure reading will help in improvising the comprehending the leisure reading? Now at this stage, Thirumal, is all for momentum building. It's very, very important to keep your reading momentum on. The more you read, let's say you sit for 30 to 45 minutes and read a longer article and read a complex article. Complexity will depend on you should push yourself out of the comfort zone. I'm not saying everybody should read on, right? But if you do that, it will build momentum, which will really help you in the exam. In fact, I tell students that even when you're commuting to the center or you're waiting for the exam outside, read a light, not heavy duty, not Aeon, read a light article. Okay, just the idea is to keep your reading momentum on so that it helps you in VRC. That's what we're doing. Okay. All right, people. Awesome. I'm going to call it a day. If you have any more questions, put them in comments. Okay, and I'll make sure to get back to you. All the very best, and I'll see you on the other side, the brighter side after CAT. Okay, see you. Bye. Take care.